Now, a brewing standoff between Delta State government and the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC Delta State chapter, is threatening to escalate following the introduction of a new dress code policy for civil servants across the state. Governor Sheriff Oboriwori administration recently issued a circular mandating a stricter standards of dress code for public servants aimed, as they seek, to curb what it described as unpleasant practice of improper dressing in public services. The policy made public through the office of the head of service and decimated by the governor's new media aid office reference an earlier directive from March 12, 2009, which is now being reviewed and reflect what government officials call a new culture of decency. However, the policy has sparked outrage among public sector workers and their union representatives, who argue that the directive is out of touch and unfair considering the current economic realities faced by civil servants in the state. And they also stated that more emphasis should rather be on good working condition in offices, where they lament about basic office supplies such as chairs, tables, pens, and other office accessories lacking in most government offices, and should rather be top priority for government and not dress code. Well, this impasse has once again sparked the debate on what direction Delta needs to follow if it wants to be regarded as the preeminent among other states and indeed the big heart of the nation. Hence, a need for us to talk about it on this edition of Dialogue as we look at Delta State and what direction Delta State needs to follow. And that's what we're having as a major one, creating a new direction for Delta State as it concerns governance and indeed all that seems to be in the state. And that's what we're having as a major one, more like part two of our initial discussion that we had a couple of weeks talking about Delta and the anniversary that it had in this creation some almost 34 years ago. Well, that's what we're having as a major discourse today on the show, looking at the Delta State government and the policies it's putting in place and what it should naturally be for Delta to really gain that prominent place among committee of states in the nation. And just like we had it some couple of weeks back, we're still having him join us on this lovely edition. And I'm talking of no other person but the governorship candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general elections, or rather state elections in Delta State. And we're talking of no other person but Dikin Kenpela. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you so much for joining us on this awesome edition. More like creating or setting the pace that Delta should follow as it concerns governance and development. Welcome to it, sir. Good morning, and welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, I would really want us to start by first, I really would love you to address what we talked about in our introduction, and it's the new dress code instituted. I know you are laughing. I'll plead with you to hold on. The dress code
when you were using it as an introduction, I was just telling myself, say, hey, God, hope this man don't want to ask me this question.
Well, sorry, I'll need to bring you on that and ask you this question. I want your reaction as it concerns the new dress code, especially looking at what the Nigerian Labour Congress in the state is saying, that more needs to be done in the provision of basic amenities in the office rather than going throughout the route of dress code.
Well, I will, on one hand, I will agree that a lot more needs to be done in terms of providing an enabling environment for productivity. That's the word I would use. So if I were in his shoes, yes, I just said, on one hand, I agree with government when they provide, if you want, they say dress as you would like to be addressed. So if our workforce is expected to be productive and professional, they should dress the way they would like to be. So if what is expected of a workforce is a certain kind of dress code, which is universal, so to speak, universal in terms of a corporate organization, then there's nothing wrong in asking them to do that. However, on the other hand, government should look at what NLC is saying about providing the right environment, about providing the right tools, about providing what is required for productivity. So both sides are right to a large extent, and the tools need to be put in place for people to be productive. Again, brings me back to the foundation, righteousness. The first pillar of our plan for Vision Better Delta is doing the right thing. The right thing in a corporate environment is to be dressed in a particular way. The right thing in a corporate environment is to provide the tools for productivity. So the next question I expect will be, what will we do different? I just told you. We would provide the right foundation.
Yes, you're not far from the truth, sir. Hello, sir. You seem not to be far from the truth, because many will say, yes, it's easy to criticize, but what will you do differently, and what will you do better than what we have now? So my next question, like you've just predicted, is what should be the way forward, especially as it concerns civil workers in the state? What do you feel, or where do you feel data needs to be as it concerns their welfare and indeed their working environment, with your vision?
Yeah, the main problem, when there's no accountability, accountability starts from a vision. It's the vision that makes you say, oh, am I keeping up with what I said I will do? I say again, I have said it over and over and over. Delta lacks vision. What are the deliverables? What are we aiming for? What does the more agenda stand for? What is the vision that the workforce are working towards? So what would I do different? The first thing, cast the vision, make it clear. They say, write the vision, make it plain on tablets. That's what the Bible says, that he may run who reads it. So that vision needs to be clear to the force. They need to catch that vision. I have vision of the three pillars of righteousness, harmony, and prosperity. And then the prosperity being driven by the 8 prosperity drivers. I believe that when we cast that vision right to the workforce, okay, and they see what they're working towards, and they see how what each person does affects the vision. So the cleaner in the office, how does, whether he cleans the office well or not, how does it affect whether we deliver on our 3 pillars and 8 drivers? When you are able to get them to understand that, if you tell them, say, wear like this, dress like this to come work, having provided the right tools. Having provided the right tools. So if it is that you would have an air-conditioned atmosphere 24/7, there's no breakdown in light. If it is that you have the computers and whatever that is required, if it is that productivity in the office is measured by the deliverables that you deliver, if you put that and you spell it all out, and they are seeing how their work affect their movement and their what's the word to use, career progression, so to speak. If you tell them to dress in a particular way, they would. So that's what I'll do different.
Giving us that insight on what you feel the workforce should be. But let's leave the workforce, because many will also say that Delta State is so civil service in nature, and there's every need for us to leave this civil service style of governance into a more of industrial hub. Well, yes, everybody will say Lagos seems to be the industrial hub of the country, but others are also saying Ogun State is also reaching out to be like that. But can't Delta also be seen as an industrial hub rather than a civil service state? And what direction do you feel we need to follow? Knowing that we have we have one of the major ports right here in Delta State that's still underutilized, if even utilized at all. So what should we do to change that narrative of Delta being a civil service state to a more industrious and productive state among community of states in the nation, according to your dream and your push and your vision?
Thank you for this question. To my plan. 3 pillars. So we lay the 3 pillars. The 3 pillars are the pillars of the foundation, so to speak, of the plan. The 8 prosperity drivers are the things that drive, and it's all about jobs, jobs, jobs. Okay? The first one, and I, in the last interview, the last time we met, I talked about the job creation manual that we published, and it is a 6-page document that breaks down in detail how these 8 prosperity drivers will provide jobs. If we are able to do that, Delta State that you're talking about, talking about being an industrial hub, will be more than an industrial hub. The first is power and gas utilization, all right, where we will turn our gas resources, okay, to power. We will turn them to jobs, basically. All right. So the job creation manual takes those drivers, and I went through a bit of power and gas utilization during the last interview. But so today, let me talk a bit about the 10 new cities. So there's power and gas utilization. There's the 10 new cities. All right. Construction is something that drives the process of economic growth. Okay. I said each of these drivers are carefully selected to catalyze growth in their various areas. So the 10 new agro-industrial tech-driven destination cities, okay, each city will be anchored on 5 strategic pillars. The first is energy and sustainability. The second is technology and innovation. The third is agro-industrial transformation. The fourth is multimodal transport, where you have roads, we have rail, and we're looking at Deltrack. You have air. I'm looking at Delta. Delta is the only state, I believe, in the country where you currently have two airports. So rather than driving 2 hours from Warri to Asaba, for example, if you have an air system that enables you to get to Asaba in 15 minutes, all right, I'm sure that flight will be fully booked round the clock. Okay, and if you have that kind of situation where you also have use it to go to some of the riverine areas, those are some of the things that we're looking at. And then the deltaways, that's the riverine inland waterways, and then the Delta Technical and Talent Academies,
okay,
where we will within each city we'll have purpose-built technical universities innovation academies, and future work campuses that equip Delta youth with 21st century skills in green energy, artificial intelligence, agrotech, advanced construction, digital fabrication, and the circular economy, preparing them for tomorrow's economy today. Now, in each of those cities, we'll have 10 embedded systems across the cities: destination tourism and retail anchors, inclusive agro-industrial ecosystems, inclusive urban enterprise ecosystems, inclusive participation framework, smart education and learning ecosystems, integrated health and wellness ecosystems, governance and citizen engagement frameworks, green infrastructure and climate resilience strategies, safety, security, and disaster resilience frameworks, and sports and youth development ecosystems. Now, each city will be specialized by zone. So in the Undokwa Okwani axis, we're looking at indicative sectoral focus on rice and agro-processing. And then the energy role will be gas to power hub and digital energy zone. In the Ughelli North South Udu Federal Constituency, we'll have cassava and agro-logistics, and the energy role will be industrial energy zone. In the Bomadi Patani Federal Constituency, we'll have fisheries and aquaculture, and their energy role will be solar and hybrid mini grid support. In Anyocha Oshimili, we'll have tech and digital economy, and their energy role will be grid stable energy innovation labs. In Warri North, South, and Southwest, that's the Warri Federal Constituency, we'll be looking at petrochemicals and marine logistics for their indicative sectoral focus, and the energy role will be major oil and gas industrial complex. In Uye Okpe Saple, we'll be looking at trade, finishing, and supply chains, and the energy role will be energy power trade and industrial corridor. In Ika Federal Constituency, we'll be looking at horticulture and herbal medicine, and the energy role will be low intensity energy, renewable energy base. Ethiopia will be agro-logistics and warehousing.
I'll need to plead with you to hold on, because you spoke about something I want us to also look about before you reel all of that out. And it's the issue of agriculture. Okay. Now, if you still remember, just early this week, or last week to be precise, during the weekend, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu talked about crashing down the price of food. And everybody is saying, well, it looks as if the issue of food seems to be more of a central government concern rather than making it a state business concern. And I'm a bit curious, especially as a concern, because I heard you talking about breaking the different senatorial zones and cities into agric hub. Now, let's look at how that can also help transform Delta State. Rather than being a state that every other agro product will have to come in before we can be able to feed ourselves, how can we also be a powerhouse as it concerns agro and other when it concerns agriculture in itself, making agriculture a basic norm that we're able to feed ourselves and also have enough to export to other states?
Michael, the truth is, I don't even think federal government has any business with agriculture.
Okay.
They really shouldn't. It should be a state thing. When we had cocoa, Western region.
Yeah.
When we had palm oil, Eastern region.
Eastern region.
When we had groundnut in the north, was it a federal concern? Okay. No. These things have been carried to federal, as far as I'm concerned, as a way of chopping money. Okay? Agriculture should be a state concern. And if you recall, when we talked during the our last meeting, I talked about when I was comparing Nigeria with Dubai. And I said that, when Delta was created, we had a lot more comparative advantage compared to Dubai. While Dubai was a desert, Delta has arable land across the length and breadth of Delta. All right? So that is what we're going to take advantage of. Each of the areas where we have a competitive advantage for a particular agri product, okay, we will turn that place to an agri powerhouse. All right? And then we will develop the full value chain for each of those products. So from the farm to the industry and packaged to go to the tables or for export. That's what we're looking at. And it will be true. So you're not hearing me talk about agri the way people who don't have a plan, we just talk, oh, we want to do agriculture. All right? From an economic point of view, as an economist, I have put everything into a holistic plan. So the cities, for the cities to survive, okay, they will build the ecosystems that will make them survive. And those ecosystems will include those agri value chain systems. All right? And it will be totally driven by the private sector. We will provide the enabling environment to attract the investments that will make this happen. All right? So it's the plan is holistic. And if you permit me to go on, so we basically are looking at smart urban design, multimodal transport integration, and then I'll go on to now. This is something interesting to look at: land to capital frameworks. Okay, youths and farmers will be empowered through convertible land titles, community land trusts, and credit-linked cooperatives, turning idle land. So as we build these cities, the idle land in those cities that are being developed will be turned into active capital for micro-enterprise, housing, and agro value chain entry. So people that were given lands to now, what is different to what's being done now? We want to empower people. Even when we talk about farmers, we give them starter packs. All right. To a large extent, these people, maybe when they do training, they start starter packs. But by the time you train these people and put them through a system where part of what you are giving them is a land document, okay, land title to maybe their farm, land title to maybe their industry, the cottage industry or whatever, those things can then be turned into capital that will then enable them continue to build their businesses. And remember, I talked about the social investment scheme, where we will give ₦1 million each to 100 people, ₦1 million each to 100 people in every local government every month. Okay?
I'll plead with you to hold on because of time, and we have a whole lot to talk about. Now, I want us to look at another major one that seems to be on the front burner, and it's the issue of revenue generation. Now, this government, and I'm talking about the Delta State government, said they've done enough as it concerns internally generated revenue. And if we look at the projections they've had over the years, they seem to have had a reasonable push as it concerns generation of internally generated revenue. Don't you feel it's the right direction they are taking? I'm talking about this very government.
Within the limits of what the fee do, if he didn't day, didn't day. All right. If you let's look at Delta of before, Michael. Delta of before that we knew was a Delta where Warri, Sapele, and a few other cities were growing based on private enterprise. All right, they were growing based on private enterprise and not dependent on government. Today, that's a thing of the past. All right. So if you have limited economic activity, there's a limit to which you can generate in terms of internally generated revenue. But I would say that even that, I believe, can be improved when the right systems are put in place. I do not think that even right now we are getting the maximum that we should get, because I believe that we still have a lot of leakages in the system. However, I won't even look at it from that point of view. I would talk of baking a bigger cake. And our 8 prosperity drivers, first of all, the 3 pillars will ensure that we are able to increase whatever we are generating. Those 3 pillars of first, righteousness, accountability will ensure a curtailing of waste, will ensure that corruption is cut, and so on. The second pillar of harmony, all right, will ensure there's peace across the land so that we can attract some of the industries that have left. And then the third pillar of prosperity, where we would improve the life of our people with better roads, with better healthcare, and so on. Those would deal with our current situation and improve our generation. But more importantly, the 8 prosperity drivers will drive the growth, the process of growth that will enable us bake a much bigger cake and enable us generate more. I would like us to always think about it and look at it from that perspective. Okay? That perspective where we would improve jobs. Let me go at this point, to summarize the total effect of this, the total projected effect of these 8 prosperity drivers. Because of time, let me just go and summarize the total effect. All right? Now, we are looking at power and gas utilization, providing 800,000 new jobs. Do you know what that would do to pay? Estimated GDP impact will be between 3.5 to 4 trillion naira per year. And the key sectors that will be activated will be energy, tech, and agro industries. The 10 agro-industrial cities are projected to give us 1.5 new jobs by 2039. 6 to 7.5 trillion naira GDP impact per year. And the key sectors that will be activated will be agriculture, industry, and ICT. Social housing scheme is projected to generate 500,000 new jobs by 2039. GDP impact 2.5 to 3 trillion naira per year. And key sectors activated will be construction, finance, and material production. So construction materials production. The fourth is reviving moribund industries. That is projected to provide 1.2 million new jobs. Estimated GDP impact is 5 to 6.5 trillion per year. Key sectors activated will be manufacturing, agro industries, and trade. The fifth is reviving ports and waterways. Okay, that is projected to give us 400,000 new jobs by 2039. Estimated impact, GDP impact, is 2.5 to 3.2 trillion a year. Key sectors activated will be maritime, logistics, and the coastal economy. LGAs as development centers with fiscal autonomy will generate 500,000 new jobs and will impact the GDP by 2 trillion per year. Key sectors activated will be public works, local governance, and MSMEs. The LGA-based social investment scheme would generate over 2 million new jobs. Okay, an estimated impact will be 1.2 to 1.5 billion per year. And it will affect the informal sector, digital finance, okay, and social services. And then for living wage and dignified work, it will generate 600,000 new jobs. Now, all in all, we are looking at over 7.5 cumulative new jobs, 24 to 29.2 trillion in new economic activity annually by 2039. Okay? Over 360,000 micro enterprises would be empowered with social scheme.
Stop you there,
Public and private
sir,
workforce will be
because of
impacted.
time. Because the reason we're also having this discussion is the issue. I'm happy you laid this out, because there's always a question of, yes, it's easy to criticize, but what other direction do you feel we can go? And you've just given us an insight on where you feel data needs to be, especially as it concerns the civil service that really brought up all this discussion, and the issue of job creation, which many will feel it's about time that Delta seems to take the lead. But anyway, we know time is not a friend, but we need to also ask you this very important question. Is the issue of peace in Delta State. Now, let's talk about the issue of security, which is also paramount. Because if we even have all that you have talked about, if there is no peace and no security in Delta State, or rather that plan will not be. So what direction should security need to be, especially as it concerns the Big Heart?
Okay. That is speaking to our plan for creating harmony. Now, the plan for creating harmony, again, starts with the foundation of righteousness. Once we've done the right things in terms of and all those things, we begin to focus on harmony. Now, in terms of harmony, our plan entailed a couple of things. But before I address those things, there's the issue of natural security. And when I talk about natural security, I'm talking about people who go into criminality. For a lot of them, do that because they don't have a choice. There are no jobs. There's basically hopelessness. So when we are able to cast hope that there will be jobs and we begin to create jobs, a lot of those people who go into criminality either make themselves available for thuggery. There's a quarrel, there's a communal crisis, and they make themselves available for it. The guy who is working and gainfully employed in an industry will not go and make himself available for a communal strife. All right. So when we are able to cast that vision and we are able to show that there's hope in terms of growth, jobs, and so on, that aspect of what leads to insecurity in terms of hunger-driven criminality would reduce significantly. That's on one hand. Now, on the other hand, you have the criminality that comes, or rather, you have the insecurity that comes from certain people invading our space, invading our forests, invading, and then, basically turning our forests to become insecure, stopping our people from going to their farms, stopping our people. That we will be very, very strict on. We will take no prisoners. It will be clear to everybody that our government will not take it lightly. Okay? We will make sure our forests are clear. We will make sure we will empower our community. There's no community in Delta today that doesn't have a community security system besides the police. Okay? Every community empowers their youth to protect them. Okay? So we would actively work with the community leaders, okay, to empower the youth of the community to ensure that, in quote, these, for lack of a better word, these criminals that are invading our forests and spaces are not allowed to do so. All right? Of course, working with the police. Okay? But it's something that we would actively work on. So first of all, we will ensure that we put in place natural security by ensuring that the youths have jobs so they do not fall back to criminality. We would empower our communities in terms of community policing to ensure that if someone who is not from a community enters the community people would know. So we would empower them and we will make sure that security is built across the land.
I'm talking of no other person but Deacon Kempela for being with us. Time is never a friend, especially there's no way we can truly exhaust all that needs to be, especially as it concerns Delta State, on one sweep. So we might be really doing this.
You know what, Michael?
Yes.
You know what, Michael?
Yes.
I would be very happy. It might be nice if we can take an aspect of our plan.
Okay.
And then I'll be very happy to come every week if you want, or every other week.
Well, we'll see how we make all of those arrangements. And as we do so, we'll definitely love to have you on board. We'll really like that. And just like what you've said, we'll see how we can create all of that to be. And most certainly we'll love to have you. But like I said, time is not a friend. And especially, we have a lot, especially as it concerns Viewpoint. But we can never go without thanking you so much. And I'm talking of no other person but Deacon Kempela, Labour Party chieftain. And also, if you remember, definitely the Labour Party governorship candidate in the last 2023 governorship election in the state. We truly appreciate your time. We know how busy you are, but when it comes to the issue of data, you always push everything aside to honor that call and have a discussion with us. Thank you so much for honoring that. We truly appreciate the time with us.
The pleasure is all mine.
Well, thank you so much. Well, anyways, that's how it is right here on the show. And we had a great discussion as it concerns every issue that concerns the big heart. And we're talking about Delta State. So we always implore you to remember to join us on our different social media platforms. Let's have your views. Drop those comments. Let's have your reaction as it concerns all our discussion, especially on dialogue, and be certain that in sooner or later time, we'll definitely also see a need for opening up the line so you can call in and have that interaction with us. Well, that promise will definitely keep very, very soon. But for now, we need to go on a break. And when we come, the news and trending will still make a very major one on Viewpoint on Atlantic TV.